Good evening, everyone, or good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And this is Sharon from Self Care for Black Men. And I do see you, Jeff. Here we go.
Let's see. This way.
Did you need to turn your phone to the side?
It would probably be better. All right, I'm gonna turn it like that.
Thank you.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. There we go.
All right. And I'm just going to wait for just a few moments to allow a few people to join. But again, this is Sharon from Self Care for Black Men. And this evening, and let me go ahead and type this down now. So forgive me, everyone, for a moment. This evening, this is meditation series for Black men. And pretty much what that is talking about featuring Black men either who teach meditation or who practice meditation. And that's more so that other Black men who are curious about meditation can learn more. And just give me one moment while I type this in. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get started by having just a few moments of silence. And so I like to start off anytime I go live. It's just a few moments of silence or breathing exercises, because a lot of times throughout the day we're kind of busy just going about things. And sometimes just sitting in silence or breathing can kind of just center us and allow us to think and be focused on what we have in front of us. And so wherever you are, just sit comfortably. And if you're standing, that's fine too, because again, with this exercise, you can do anywhere where you are. And this is just a breathing exercise. And so sit comfortably, bring your hands to your lap or wherever that's going to be comfortable. You can keep your eyes open, or you can close your eyes or gaze towards the ground, whether you're standing or if you're sitting, and just focus on your breath and just breathe 5 times. And slowly bring your attention back to the surface. And again, that was just a brief breathing exercise, and you can do that anywhere. And I don't know about anybody else. I was about to go in the zone myself. I was like, oh, I could do that a little longer. But again, that's just something that can help you. This evening, we have Jeff with us, and he's going to talk about his experience with meditation. And so, just to kind of start off, tell us a little bit about you, and then especially about yourself before you started practicing meditation, Jeff.
Well, first of all, Sharon, thanks for having me, and kudos to you for the work that you're doing and taking an active concern about us Black men and promoting self-care. Just to tell you a little bit about myself and my road to meditation, to and through meditation. Um, I'm an entrepreneur, and with that comes a lot of uncertainty at times. Um, you know, it's not something that's for the faint of heart. So there are times that it produces a lot of anxiety, as well as their lows and their highs. Their highs in terms of when you're experiencing great success, and their lows in terms of when you're in a valley. And so, with all of that, there's a need to strike a balance. The pendulum swings both ways, but I was looking for a way to find a balance in the midst of all of that, and and actually some personal tragedies that I'd experienced. Was looking for a way to find balance, and fortunately, I met my meditation teacher, who was in the practice of transcendental meditation. Who actually, not only is he a great teacher, but he's actually a direct disciple of Maharishi Yogi, who was the founder of the Transcendental Meditation movement. And so my teacher actually sat at his feet for 15 years in the Himalayas. So I'm fortunate to have studied under and still study with a teacher who's a direct disciple of the movement founder. Transcendental meditation, there are obviously many different forms of meditation out there, and the one that I've chosen is transcendental meditation. And when you say transcendental meditation, you talk the root word of transcendental is to transcend. And so when you practice transcendental meditation during that period, you actively transcend your physical body. You actually transcend a lot of the limitations that you see in this 3D reality. So it's an opportunity. It's if you practice transcendental meditation, you practice it twice a day, 2 20-minute intervals. And one of the really neat things about it is that each of those 20-minute intervals puts you in a state of deep rest, and can be, for an accomplished meditator, that each of those 20-minute meditation segments can be the equivalent of up to 8 hours of good sleep. So it's a way to still yourself, calm the mind. With that comes a lot of great health benefits, such as, I have the blood pressure of a high school athlete.
Wow.
and I attribute a lot of that to the consistent practice of transcendental meditation. As I said, particularly with Black men, stress is the big silent killer.
Oh, yeah.
So we number one, we need to take some steps to counteract that trend. And so I think the more and more men, black men in particular, who become aware of transcendental meditation or some form of meditation, we're going to be able to gain some headway on curbing that trend.
Yeah, this is true. So when you were looking for a balance, were you specifically looking for a balance with meditation?
Actually, some of the metaphysical study that I was doing, a lot of it, and biblical metaphysical study that I was doing, a lot of it had an emphasis on stillness.
Okay.
Be still and know that I am. Know that God, I am presence within you. And a lot of things kept popping up about a deep trance and this and that. And one day, a link to transcendental meditation appeared on my computer. And of course, we know there no such thing as coincidence. So,
Yeah.
So when it popped up, I was led to follow up on it, and subsequently went to a couple of the talks and decided to take it on. And I would say it's one of the best investments that I've ever made. It's been worth everything that I've put into it, everything that I've gotten out of it, for sure.
Okay. And one thing I want to say too regarding, because you mentioned like stress and you also mentioned deep rest. And though, especially with the deep rest, that's something that I really try to inform everybody, but especially Black men about, is sitting in silence and that deep rest. And in that deep rest, it can come in many forms. It can come into, sitting in silence, whether it's meditation or however that person decides to do that. And then also deep rest can come into, like I teach restorative yoga. And Dr. Gail, I had the honor and the pleasure to study under Dr. Gail Parker. She's a psychologist and a restorative yoga teacher for many, many years. And that's something that she really, really honed on. And I was telling a group of people one time, let me say this first, is that I am a mental health professional myself, been in the field for many years. And, and I've been also, when it comes to being, I guess you say, healthy, at least health conscious and things like that. But one thing I've always noticed is like when it comes to Blacks and Black health, it's like a high risk for high blood pressure, for diabetes, and it's an epidemic. And I never really could understand that, because I'm like, we're not, we're all human. What is it about it? And then when I started studying under Dr. Gail Parker, she pretty much has some work regarding racial wounding. And so that race has a lot to do with it too. And then especially you talk about like Black men. And I'm like, oh, that's where it kind of comes from. So even for all of us who are Black, when we're stepping into the world, whether we're working and things like that, that is where a lot of our stress comes from. And some of it is kind of unconscious. And so just by saying that, what I want to say is that as many years that I've been in this field for a very long time, and probably been studying, I would say, been introduced to yoga the past 3 years, and looking at consciousness, meditation, and other things. What I'm learning about the mind and the body is so deep at a different level than I had in the traditional way. They didn't teach us in this way. And so they don't, it's almost like we would vaguely talk about certain things, but not about that deep rest. It's almost like about making somebody feel good, but how can you really help completely change the person's kind of makeup? And that's kind of where that deep rest comes from, because kind of looking at with the stress, we stay, and especially Black men, stay in the fight, flight, and freeze response. And so that is where sitting in silence and deep rest kind of comes into, come into play a big part in that. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. It was just by you mentioning that, is that is why it is so important, because we need to rejuvenate, our bodies and our senses. And if we're always just kind of, even on an unconscious level, reacting to things or fighting against something, or, throwing something at the TV, or getting frustrated because of something on the news, that energy needs to be moved somewhere. And this is where, again, meditation comes into play. So again, I just kind of wanted to just kind of reiterate that piece. And so along your journey, what have you discovered how meditation has helped you?
Well, meditation has helped me in a plethora of ways. There are the obvious health benefits, as you mentioned, that, Black men, we stay in that fight or flight response mode all the time. So we carry a great deal of much higher cortisol levels. And so, when you get into meditation, you find yourself, and I've experienced the euphoria of being an endorphin overload, as opposed to just fight or flight mechanism, cortisol going on all the time, and obvious health benefits. But they're also, when people, for instance, when my teacher goes out to talk to people or recruit potential clients for meditation, obviously because of the religious boundaries and things like that exist out there, meditation is something that's sold primarily from the standpoint of health and mental health. Mm-hmm. I'm one that can attest to that. I'm more than half a century and a century old, and my blood pressure, as I said, is that of a high school athlete. I attribute a lot of that to meditation. But there are also spiritual benefits as well, in terms of getting in touch with your higher self, tapping into the reservoir of creativity that's within you. There are a lot of performers, recording artists, comedians, and people like that who say that, they're at their most creative when they start meditating. One of my teacher's biggest clients is a world famous rock band, and when one of the gentlemen who's the primary writer for the group, he said, "Hey, I would write something that I felt was good and acceptable, maybe once in 90 days." And I started meditating, and, I'm spitting out 2 or 3 things every day or every other day. So there's a reservoir of creativity that we tap into. We tap into our higher self when you meditate. These are the things that aren't very often talked about. But when you can, in Scripture, it talks about the kingdom is within you. And when you meditate, that's when you go within. You tap into your higher self. You're going to be at your most creative. You're going to, when it comes to your career, you're going to accelerate faster, because you're taking the fast track to your higher self. you're tapping into what's known as the unified field. You know, Scripture says that you have an unction from the Holy One, and you know all things. And this, and we do know all things. It's just what we're aware of at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in meditation is that you actually expand your awareness of the unified field and all things that are available to you. So your IQ, your creativity, all of these things increase, and you pretty much on a faster track to success. And also getting to know who you are truly, who you are really. You know, a lot of the stress that we deal with, particularly as Black men, is that we deal with labels that other people have put on us or that life has put on us.
Yeah.
And so when you start to meditate, you start to shed layers of things that are not your authentic self. So I would say another real benefit of meditation is that you tap into your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if we talk about the law of attraction, you know, we're always attracting based on what's going on in our subconscious mind. But if you've got a lot of labels and things that have been placed on you that aren't authentically you, that means that you're attracting from a place of inauthenticity. Mm-hmm. Meditation causes you to get in touch with the real you. Who are you at the core? You get to know you get to know your higher self, and that becomes your point of attraction. So again, we can talk about the physical benefits, the health benefits, and obviously things need to start there, because let's face it, amongst our people, you know, if you can't stay in the game, there's no need to tap into the other things. The first thing to do is to, you know, maintain our health and restore our health. But beyond that, meditation is the pathway to your higher self.
Mm-hmm. And you had said something about shedding layers of yourself. And one thing that I can say, even during my meditation journey, I'm trying to think of the one way, is that part of it, of the shedding, sometimes if someone doesn't recognize what that is, that can make them not want to meditate. There was somebody on Instagram or either Facebook, and I can't remember who it is, but they kind of talked about it a little bit. But pretty much, I guess the easiest way of saying it is that with meditation, it shows you who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess you can say when that shedding part of it, if we clinged on to any labels that anyone has made, then that will come to front. And even things that we may have done as well, whether it's intentional or not. Because I know even when I sat in meditation, and, you know, it's like you get these insight revelations and aha moments, and I'm like, did I do that? No, I didn't do that. But I know, you know, whatever it was that I didn't do intentionally, but it shows you yourself. You know, it shows you yourself. And so, what was that like for you? I guess you could say the shedding.
Well, you know, one analogy that we use for that is that it's like sleeping. When you start meditating, it's like going into a cave where there are a lot of sleeping elephants, right? And the deeper you go into the cave, the more the elephants you wake up. And so when you first wake them up, they're startled and they kick up a lot of dust. Mm-hmm. But eventually what happens is those sleeping elephants clear out of the cave and the dust begins to settle. But you have to disturb them. You have to wake them up. There's got to be chaos before calm. And so don't be alarmed when you first start meditating, because there's a great deal of stress that we have taken on, and it exists at a very subconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be stirred up in order to be moved out. So, and the thing about it is that as you alleviate this stress, it takes you to a whole nother. It puts you in a whole nother place. But
Yeah.
you have to go through it to get to it. So don't be alarmed by that. It's well worth it. But again, see, we tend to take on stress, and when we don't deal with it, it's there, but it exists on a subconscious level. So you're not even aware of it on a daily basis. But again, because your subconscious mind is the tail that wags the dog, it's your point of attraction. So you're not attracting from the good thoughts that you're having here. You're attracting things into your reality from these repressed, subdued thoughts that are below the level of consciousness, that are in your subconscious. So again, meditation serves to expose that and release things that, limiting beliefs, things that are no longer serving you. It serves to release those things. But again, you got to clear the cave out first. And that's an exercise. But once you clear it out, you can build from there. And even in the act of manifestation, in the act of creation. Now, I know I'm going to date myself when I say this, but the old recordable or writable disc, that, okay, what we had to do before we could record something new on one of those old discs was to clear that disc out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what happens, the same thing, when we want to manifest something, we want to manifest from we essentially got to create a clean disc, a clean canvas, and we start over. We don't want to try to write over something that already exists. It's not going to work. So you got to clear out those old subconscious beliefs so that you can start a new thing. And what happens in meditation is you go back to the point where when God said to Jeremiah, he said, before I formed you, I knew you. So before you took on any form, before you took on any thought for anything, you were simply consciousness, simply spirit, simply consciousness. This is what you have an opportunity to go back to, and then start anew. We don't want to keep writing over things, over the sleeping elephants, if you will. You want to clear the disc, have a new canvas, and create from the place where any and everything is possible. And that is one of the things that that's one of the big advantages of meditation, is that you can get to that place.
Yeah. And you were saying about with stress that it's subconscious, and the one thing that I want to just kind of say about that too, by being subconscious, sometimes it may come out as I guess you say body ache, inflammation, and things like that. And so when someone goes to the doctor to say, oh, I have a headache, or my back hurt, my body ache, and the doctor may say inflammation, but they may not be able to pinpoint what it is. And sometimes the doctor may say, oh, where it's stress, or they may say it's psychological. And sometimes when they say it's psychological, sometimes someone may say, well, I'm not worried about anything or anything like that. And even though consciously you may not be worried about something, but it's kind of like, however, just it can be something small. Somebody can cut you off, and in that first response that you had, it can be your interaction with someone at work or even home. And so it comes up in that way. And then the doctors or medical provider may say, oh, well, you need to, from what I can remember, what they would say is kind of like, you need to get rid of the stress, make it sound like, but people don't know what to do. And so that's kind of where it's not get rid of the stress, it's manage the stress. So that's where sitting in silence, meditation, and that deep rest comes into play in managing stress. The other thing is, too, you were talking about the creativity part and being able to manifest. And I know that with a lot of people, I mean, even women too, but especially men and especially Black men, it's like there's a badge of honor of grinding and hustling, you know. And I'm not saying that, I'll put it like this. Yes, work needs to go into to achieve, but the grinding and hustling is literally killing people, and especially Black men, because it's like, when do you stop to really enjoy life? You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
kind of talk a little bit more about, I guess you could say, how meditation can help. You talked a little bit about it, the creativity part.
Well, in terms of the grinding and hustling, I like to think about meditation like, those old, here I go dating myself again, but those old snow globes, you shake them up.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
Right. You shake them up, you sit them down, and eventually the snow settles. Okay. So basically, when we're grinding and hustling, there's a lot that goes on in terms of anxiety, in terms of pressure, and things of that nature. So think of it as one of those snow globes that's being shaken up. But when you stop to meditate or to sit in silence, the snow settles. And what happens when the snow settles, you can see the picture or whatever the object of that globe is. You can see with great clarity. And so that's what's advantageous. See, a lot of times when we talk about the hustle and grind aspect of things, busyness does not necessarily equate to progress.
That's true.
So
say that again for the people in the back.
Business does not necessarily equate to progress. So the most important thing in making progress is having direction. Obviously, you want to make tracks in that direction, but if you don't have any direction, you're just involved in business. You're kind of like the hamster running in the wheel. Mm-hmm. You're making tracks, but you're not really getting anywhere. So this again is a place that meditation is advantageous, because when the snow settles, you have clarity and direction in terms of where to go. So with that, you can add purpose to your hustle and to your grind. Otherwise, it's just business. And
I like that
necessarily quick to progress.
Yeah. And so with meditation, since how long have you been meditating? How many years?
I have been doing TM actually about 5 years now.
Okay. And so since you have been meditating and looking back, I guess you say pre-Jeff and meditation Jeff, and I'm pretty sure that there have been some situations in life that has come up even since you've been meditating. You don't have to go in details, but just more so, not unless you want to share, but if you can think about an experience that you've had where, if it was pre-Jeff, it would not have been, I guess, pleasant. But since you've been meditating, you can look back on it and say, you know what? This meditation is working. You know what I'm saying? Can you think of something since you've been meditating that you know that if it would have occurred before you started meditating, it could have been a different scenario?
Oh, a lot of great detail, but yeah, there's certainly situations where early on, pre-meditation, Jeff would have, who's laid back for the most part, but there are some times that, you know, are some things that have occurred that had they occurred pre-meditation, Jeff probably would have blown a gasket.
Yeah.
And in dealing with you know, dealing with some individuals that I thought were totally out of line.
Mm-hmm.
But meditation allowed me to have an aerial view of circumstances. So a lot of times, you know, as they say, when you're in the forest, all you can see is the trees. But when you start to meditate, you start to have an aerial view or an ascended view, and you see things from a higher perspective. So definitely in some of those circumstances where pre-meditation Jeff would have blown a gasket, you know, I was looking at it from a higher perspective as,
Yeah.
as a result of being a meditator.
Yeah. And I've heard people say that. And then at the same time, there can be times in which I guess you could say we have our meltdown. We're human. I know that I'm trying to think of the best way. I'll put it like this. With my primary job, I answer the phone, and sometimes you get different kind of calls. And there was this one guy. One thing I can say, he was determined that had to have his way. And it was like there was nothing that I could do that could appease him, even though I was trying to help him. But it just almost like he just kept, digging, and whatsoever. But that was a very stressful call. And then
Oh yeah.
once I realized what was going on, but I had already just, just really just, oh my gosh, I was like, no yoga, no meditation didn't do me any good. Now, in saying that, I was professional, but I'm just talking about more of how it made me feel. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say we're human. And so it's not like it's going to dissolve us of not having, emotions when things happen, but it can put us in certain places. And I was like, okay, well, maybe, the next time I can definitely start breathing when I notice certain things regarding somebody. You know what I'm saying? When I first noticed him, nitpicking, something like that. And I had to debrief it with my supervisor, and more so to vent, because you need to be able to express it, to get it out, to vent it out, to release that energy. So again, and I was listening to someone too talking about an interaction they had with their child, and again, it doesn't mean you're not going to have any moments, because again, we're human, but at the same time, I think it allows us to, like you say, see things from a bigger view,
Right.
where we're able to, at least, most of the time, because there's just some things in which, hey, I mean, I hate to say that we're human, not to use it as an excuse or anything, but meditation does allow you to be able to have, as they say, that space in between before you respond instead of being reactive. And then, because even when I think about that particular telephone call, it was late at night, it was close to me getting off. And just in saying all of that, yeah, you still maintain, like I said, I was still professional, but meaning when you're tired and when you're hungry, you know what I mean? It's like it does something to you,
Right.
But
Well,
yeah.
Well, definitely. Also, your higher self, your spirit guides, your angels. These beings are always trying to give you information in the midst of whatever storms or trials are going on. And a lot of times you can't hear them if you're, if there's a lot of confusion, anxiety, and things of this nature going on within you. You know, again, when you go through scripture, it talks about be still, be still. There's so
Yeah,
much power in stillness. You
it
know, you,
does.
you would think that it's just the opposite, but there's power in stillness. There's information in stillness. Um, you know, when you talk about the destructive forces of nature, those are the things that make a whole lot of noise. But the power
Mm.
actually exists in silence. And so when you go into the silence, everything you need is there. All the information you need, all the revelation. When you don't know what to do next, go into the silence. Scripture says, be still and know.
Mm.
And it's saying, be still and know that I am presence, that I am, know that I am. And that's the I am is the consciousness. But you can only know that consciousness if you go into the stillness. Meditation is that route that will take you into the stillness, where the Bible describes it as the kingdom of God. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It doesn't come by observation. You can't say it's here. You can't say it's there. For the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's not in the hailstorm. It's not in the windstorm. It's in the what? It's in the still small voice. Meditation is that avenue that takes you within so that you can hear the still small voice, so that the angelic host can speak to you, so that you can get guidance on what to do next. And then when you effectively go within, that's where you encounter the peace that surpasses all understanding. And when I say it surpasses all understanding, you really have to experience it for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
It does surpass all understanding. I mean, all hell can be breaking loose out here,
Mm-hmm.
but twice a day, you do your meditation. You go within. This is where you'll find sanctuary. This is where you'll find the kingdom, and everything you need is within. But you have to meditate. And the Apostle Paul, he spoke about, he said, I die to myself daily. Die to myself. And of course, we know that he wasn't talking about a physical death, because
Yeah.
he wouldn't be coming back every day and doing it again. So,
Mm-hmm.
but but when the scripture talks about when a man dies, it says, in the day that a man dies, his thoughts perish. So what happens during the course of meditation is that your thoughts perish. This is every day you got 65,000 thoughts running back and forth through your mind. And in meditation, what you realize is that, we generally think that we are our thoughts. We identify
Yeah.
with those thoughts so much that we think we're
Mm-hmm.
those thoughts. But when you stop and ask the question, okay, uh, who's observing these thoughts?
Exactly.
So I, I
Yeah.
can't I can't be the thoughts if I'm observing the thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you meditate, this is when you detach from the thoughts. That's why Jesus said, take no thought for this, take no thought for that. You realize that I'm not my thoughts. I'm the observer of these thoughts.
Exactly.
I am source energy. I am one with source. So meditation allows you to detach from the thoughts, become one with source. And again, I'm saying this is the place from which you can create anew. This is that disc that's been cleared out, and you can rewrite it. But you have to go back to this point where when God said to Jeremiah, "Before I formed you, I knew you." So but see, when you think of something, when you take thought, you give it a form. Thoughts are forms. But before you take thought for anything, and then one of the ascended masters, or it may have even been Alan Watts, and he said, if you really want to figure out who you are, hang out in the spaces between your thoughts. Thoughts are just forms that we create. But he says, if you ever really want to get to know yourself, hang out in the spaces between your thoughts. This is another thing. Meditation gets you back to where there are no thoughts. So you're perpetually in the space, not even between thoughts, but before thoughts. And that is a place of that we originate from. We're pure energy, we're pure consciousness, we're pure love. We experience that. That's why when people pass away and this mortality is swallowed up, there's an ecstasy that they feel, because in the day that a man dies, his thoughts perish. And you exist in pure bliss. Meditation gives you a chance to visit that on a daily basis. That's why Paul said, I die to myself daily. I do this thing daily, because when I'm doing this, my thoughts are perishing. And when they're perishing, I'm experiencing pure bliss. And what happens during meditation is that every time you go and meditate and you experience this bliss, it's like meditation is a form of sleep. It's a form of deep rest. But every time you come out of meditation, you progressively bring back some of this bliss to your waking hours.
Yes.
And that's what keeps me going, is that the more and more I meditate, eventually I'm going to be in a state of cosmic consciousness where my daily waking existence is going to be just as blissful as it is when I'm meditating. So that's one of the primary reasons that I would encourage us to, particularly Black men, to get into meditation, because you get to a point where things that would cause you to blow a gasket, you just smile and keep it moving.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you were talking about that still small voice, and to the fact that the answers are within us. Because, with the still small voice, you can't get there, like you say, if you're busy moving. But when you're sitting in silence, when you're meditating, then that's when you can hear. And even if you do not, and one thing I want people to realize too, even if you do not have the moments in meditation itself, meditation opens the door. Because I cannot tell you how many times, especially, I want to say when I'm coming through a door, like the bathroom or my bedroom, it's like I have these aha moments or these revelations. And it's like, wow. So again, they may not always come when I'm sitting down, but it just opens the door for, I guess you say, the answers to come. And it's also the other thing that you were talking about. I remember growing up, or at least at some point in my life, somebody would say, "Oh, the answers are within you." You're like, "What is that?" Now I know what that means, and and it goes back to what you were talking about. So if you're sitting still, it will come to you, and things will just really fall in place. literally things will fall in place.
Absolutely.
and and the answers will come, within you. If you're struggling with something, I would definitely tell people to be careful with the words that you use, because words are powerful. So make sure whatever question that you have, you say it in a positive sense. And then, again, it may not come then, but the answer will come, whatever it is that you're looking for.
Right. And one of the things I like to share regarding, of course, when you meditate, it's an avenue to tap into your subconscious and your superconscious, and all of the answers, of course, are there. But back in the day, the old folks, when they would have to make a decision about something, or they needed an answer for something, and or had to make a decision, they would always say, "Let me sleep on it."
Yeah, sure enough.
They would always say, "Let me sleep on that." And they would come back the next day, and they would always have the answer, and they'd have the right answer. And here's why. In Job, it says, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep or deep rest," you kind of get that in meditation. It says, "When deep sleep falleth upon men as they slumber upon the bed, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction." So he says it's vain to rise up early and sit up late at night and eat the bread of sorrows, for he gives his beloved sleep. So what that says is that the answer is not going to come to you when you're rising up early, you're worried about something, you're in anxiety, you're staying up late at night, pacing the floor. He said he gives his beloved sleep. So what he's telling you is that the answer is not going to come when you're in anxiety, when you're pacing the floor and you're rising up early and refusing to go to sleep. He's saying, go to sleep. Then he opens the ears of men and he seals their instruction. So meditation is an opportunity twice a day to go and get into deep rest. And it's a time when your higher self can seal your instruction, tell you exactly what it is you need to do. You might have an enemy out there that's digging a ditch for you, or somebody's setting a trap for you, or whatever. If you go into meditation, if you go into the silence, he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. So if you're meditating on a daily basis, as you said, sometimes the answer will come to you in meditation. Sometimes it's a deep knowing, But I tell you what, the old folks, every day, every time they do it, they come back the next day, they got the right answer. Because they've taken the time to get quiet, to go into the stillness. This is what meditation does for me. I mean, granted, all of the health benefits, ultimately, this helps you be one with your higher self. So, and we talk about the kingdom that's within you. Well, everything you need is in the kingdom: health, wealth, you name it. Everything is in the kingdom. Meditation is the door to the kingdom. It's the doorway to cosmic consciousness. It's the doorway to unity consciousness with the unified field. It's the way to tap into the creative reservoir. That's gonna, when you take the time, Maharaj Yogi, who is the founder of the Transcendental Meditation movement, he said this. He said you may have 10 appointments in the marketplace, but none of them will be successful unless you go to the bank first. Meditation is going to the bank first. So before you start your day, go to the bank first. There's no need to rush to the appointments in the marketplace if you have not gone to the bank first.
And that's what self-care is all about, is taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. And meditation has a way of doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It says I remember one of the pupils said to him, he said, I don't have time to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes. He said, well, then if you don't have time, that means you need to be meditating 2 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, again, scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom. I just said meditation is the doorway to the kingdom. And all those other things will be added. So, again, meditation is seeking first. And I think once you become an active practitioner, it's something that you actually look forward to.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it is a practice. And one of the things that I say often is to be intentional. And I also say, I differentiate between rituals and routine, because, routine are things you can kind of do without thinking about, or rituals, it's like you need to think about, even though we want meditation to be something that is automatic as well, but I still think it has to be intentional, because even like with myself and with a lot of people, when stress happens, it again kind of like that fight, flight, and freeze syndrome. You can easily just go back to really not do anything. And so I think that's where that piece of practice, and to be intentional, to at least say, okay, did I take care of myself today? At least to ask that question. And sometimes, you may not be able to, even if it's just for a few minutes, just like we did the breathing exercise earlier in this live. Sometimes just doing that is better than not doing anything at all. And so, yeah, so that is really, really important. Well, our time is coming to an end. Is there any last words that you'd like to share? I really do appreciate everything that you've said.
Well, once again, thanks for having me, and thanks for the awesome work that you're doing. We as Black men are glad that somebody's out there who's concerned about us and who's promoting our welfare. So we salute you for that. If anyone wants to contact me or speak further about meditation or anything metaphysical, you can DM me on Instagram at the underscore optimistic with a Y, the number 1, the underscore OPTIMYSTIC, the number 1. Feel free to DM me, and certainly be looking out for, in the next 90 days, the Optimistic Show is going to be on the Binge Network within the next 90 days. So if you check my page, we'll keep you abreast of the developments there. But the show is going into production, and we're looking forward to seeing how we can better serve through that particular medium. So, we'd like for all of you to come on over and join us and support us there. Again, you can DM me at the underscore optimistic 1, and we look forward to hearing from all of